Hey, welcome back to the Honest Playbook. Today we're talking about business and AI. I'm going to be talking to Jose Razo about how he has most recently launched Allen's Landing Cleaning and used AI to power a whole lot of what he's doing.
We don't know it all, but here's what we know.
All right, Jose, today you are in the hot seat, buddy. It's all about you and your business and your AI journey and how you started a new company in the last couple of months. How old is Allen's Landing Cleaning?
It started in April. So whatever April is, May, June, July. So we're looking at like 4 months now, going on 4 months. And so, things are moving. It's picked up a lot better than I thought. So I don't know if AI has been the real reason it's picked up. I think it's a combination of things and
Sure.
just a bit of effort. But no, it's a new company. So it's a new venture there for myself.
Yeah, so this will be really interesting because our last episode, we kind of talked about some of our first entrepreneurial journeys and what that looked like. We talked about third mind concepts. So now we're just fast forwarding to 2026. That was like 2002, 2003, about that time when we started that company. And so we're 2 decades down the road. We've learned a lot. And it's a new time. We didn't have AI back then. We couldn't say, hey, ChatGPT, tell us how to launch a flea market photo booth. But, what was that like for you? So you got the idea. I don't want to hear too much about the idea for the cleaning business. We can talk about that another time. But I want to know, what were some of the first things that you started to talk to either ChatGPT or Claude about? What were some of the ideas, the prompts, just from square one? What was your first moment at the computer with AI?
Sure. So, the first thing was competitive analysis. I think the very first thing I started to do was to understand what it was that I was trying to get myself into and how it compared to many things. So, most recently, and I'll do a shameless plug for myself. Most recently, I was on a podcast, The Filthy Rich Cleaners. If you haven't checked it out, look it up.
Shout out to Stephanie.
Stephanie. Yes, Stephanie was gracious enough to have me on her podcast. I appreciate her. Really good conversation. And so I learned a lot about her. But one thing that it made me realize was that I needed to understand the landscape and what I was trying to get into and whether a lot of her teachings were going to hold in this market. Just because they work somewhere doesn't necessarily mean things are going to work here. So one of the first things I did was I think it was ChatGPT I use an agent. And so what I had to do was go out there, look up companies that were competitive in my zip code. So I put in the prompt, multiple zip codes in my area, kind of the area that I was going to be working in. And then I had to go out there and scrape each one of first I asked it to give me the competition, and it gave me local businesses as well as big nationwide brands like the franchises, the Maid Pros, the More Maids, and so forth. And then what I ended up asking it was, hey, go ahead and take this list that you just gave me and do a competitive analysis on how they stack. So things like, what is their pricing model? Do they provide pricing on their website? What are their guarantees? How do they offer their cleanings? Give me a little bit of information on how their websites are set up and what you can tell from each one of these. And so I remember it coming back with a whole detail and how they compared, what their strategy was, what their marketing strategy was, and how it was they were trying to go out there and get their business. Some of the companies were high end, trying to promote themselves as, a high standard premium company, consistency, reliability, insured, and so forth. Because one of the things in the cleaning business is you can hire a clean lady that'll come out and do it, but she's not insured. She breaks something, and it's going to be on you. Something goes wrong, it's going to be on you. So, some people are willing to take that risk. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask you a question because I'm interested in the competitive analysis piece because I want to hear your story, but I also want to make it relatable, if at all, to anybody who maybe has a business already or is thinking about starting a business and is going to be using AI to maybe do some of the same things that you've done. So competitive analysis, you were mainly concerned about the best companies in your area. So I think it's important to point out that that's a local application, right? So you're trying to service a certain area versus really wanting to see all of the cleaning companies in all of the major cities all over the U.S., right? So I think it's important that you narrow that focus. You mentioned what are their guarantees? What are their pricing? If they list it, this, that, and the other. Were these things that you were specifically prompting, or that's just stuff it came back with that
No,
was?
I mean, at first I asked things that I wanted to know: pricing models, what their marketing strategy was, how they were promoting themselves, and then also asked it to analyze their websites based on what it thought. So
Mhm,
very vague. Some of these were very vague prompts, and I
mhm,
think as the details came back and you start reading through some of the
mhm.
details, then you start to get a little bit more ideas of what to ask. So some of the more
Sure.
detailed questions, I really wanted to focus. Now, I knew I couldn't compete on every aspect. So what I ended up doing is, which companies do I want to be more like? And once I kind of had that understanding, that's where I focused my attention. Because here's the problem with AI: it can become overwhelming. It's the amount of data it can provide is massive, and so
Right.
sit there all day long and just spin your wheels, analyze, analyze, analyze until you can only do that for so long. And so what I ended up doing was I said, you know what, where do I want the company to be in a few years? If things were to go perfectly and we were successful, what do I want it to look like? Well, I want it to be more like a one of the Mary Maids or the Maid Pros or the Janny Kings of the world, large franchise models, multiple locations across the country, and that's what I want it to be. If I was going to go big, I'm going to go big. I'm not going to sit here and be the cheapest guy in town, and so I said, no, I want to be able to scale this, whether I scale it as a franchise or I scale it as myself, owning multiple cities across the country. I mean, that would be best case scenario. And so I just went naive and said, fuck it, I'm going to go big. And that's where I focus. And so once it came back with that data, that's what I turned around and then used to build my own
Yeah.
website.
I love that. I was just thinking of like the slogan there is like, go naive, go big. It's
Yeah,
like sometimes that's not always sound business advice,
sure, sure.
but you've got to weigh the risk there. But it's like, why not? If you're going to get into it, you're going to spend your time, energy, effort, some capital, a lot of time. You're giving yourself a part of your life into starting this business. Why not go as big as you possibly can? So, was it the fact that you saw some of these larger companies maybe recognizable to you in that area? You're seeing those search results come back, and so you're thinking already like, I have to compete with that if I'm going to be successful, or you just thought like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be as big, if not bigger. Like, what was your thought process there?
I didn't really want to compete. I think more of was, how do I want to build my brand? What do I
Sure.
want when people look at my website, when people look
Yeah.
at my employees and our style? What do I want them to think of? Do I
Yeah.
want them to think of us as, like, I'll use a different company. Do I want to be the CC's of the pizza world, or do I want to be the gourmet Italian pizza restaurant down the road that
Right.
is great, but it
That,
costs a little more?
yeah.
It's the same
They got the
product.
stone oven from Italy flown in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So who do you want to be? And so at the end of the day, I was like, I wanted to be on the bigger side. And so
Sure.
that's what I wanted to model after. I didn't want us to be, think small. So if I wanted to be big, I needed to incorporate things into the business that were going to last long term: standards, how we operate, how are we going to stay consistent? How are we going to market this? And so from day one, I used AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as thinking through the process, thinking through the branding and the strategy. I use Claude Design. I eventually switched to Claude, and so I ended
Mhm.
up going from
Mhm.
ChatGPT to Claude. I do a combination of both, and
Yeah.
so go
So
ahead.
go ahead and stop there because I want to
Yeah,
hear this because I don't think I started using Claude until I saw you use Claude. And I thought, oh my gosh, like Claude, it just opens up a whole new world. So help somebody understand if they're using, probably most likely using ChatGPT. It seems to
yeah,
be the most available, the most known.
hmm,
It's really cheap to get in monthly
sure.
for the paid version. So, like, if somebody's using ChatGPT already and they're hearing you say, I use both, how are you using both? How would you categorize your Claude usage versus your ChatGPT usage?
Right now, most of my ChatGPT is going to be for research. So I have it do agents, and it's going out to the web and pulling things. So if I want to get ideas, it goes out to the web and it's doing the search. The day-to-day operations piece where I'm sitting and engaging in things, I'm working with Claude. I find Claude to have a lot more enterprise focus as a company versus ChatGPT. If you remember, when ChatGPT came out, it was released to the masses. It became one of the world's most downloaded apps on the Apple App Store, probably on the Google Play Store as well. But it was very focused on the public, right? That's why everybody and their mother was using it, because it was easily available. But their marketing strategy and the way they were trying to secure the mass consumption of their data was through the public forums and through public means. And then I started to kind of read about, so I do a lot of investments. And so one of the things I do is I read a lot about companies that I'm thinking about investing in or things I want to do. And so I remember reading a lot about Claude and what they're doing. Microsoft, who I worked at Microsoft for a while, was using ChatGPT as their back end model to support their Microsoft Copilot. But then I also saw an article one time that Microsoft was switching over to Claude. And so there had to be a reason behind why the switch.
You've got a major company saying, we did this, now we're doing this. Like, most companies don't make those types of systems migrations very, lightly.
Yeah, so there was a reason why that had to be happening. So I started digging into it. And so, I don't want to bore everybody with the details. Read some articles, watched some documentaries, started reading things, started looking into, what it was. And then I went out there and actually tried it. I tried it on the $20 plan. Eventually got to the point where I was using it so much, I was burning through my $20 plan in 2-3 days. Yeah. And so I jumped over to the $100 max plan. And I just had it working. And I found the ease of use and some of the skills component pieces. And by no means, ChatGPT has caught up over the last 4 or 5 months to some extent, but Claude at the time was just killing it. And so I was getting better results because I would compare sometimes the way the marketing was coming out on Claude versus how it was coming out on ChatGPT.
Okay.
And so eventually one thing I started doing to kind of go back and answer your question was I'd have Claude build something and then I have ChatGPT critique it. And then I'd feed the critique from ChatGPT over to Claude and allow Claude to sit and think about the feedback. Yeah. And that feedback sometimes, and I liked it because it would push back on certain things, say, no, I disagree. If our goal for the brand is X, then we shouldn't leverage on this. But I do consider these things very valid feedback. And so I have them go back and forth.
Right. It's like AI wars.
Exactly. And just go back and critique it. And so a lot of what I end up doing was just listening to their ideas and suggestions and allowing them to chitter chatter. And then I take what I enjoyed or what I felt was my brand, right? And then I would run with those components.
I think that's an important distinction because one of my questions was going to be, and we can get to this later, but I want to make this point. One of my questions is going to be how much of what is on the internet now that represents Alan's Landing AI generated versus like Jose generated. But I know that it's both, right? Because there's still the human element. So I wanted to just point out that, okay, you're taking AI and you're taking one model and you're getting a result and you're just not taking that result and running with it. Now you're taking another AI model to critique that result. And then from that back and forth, the human is still present using your brain, your feelings, your emotions, your intuition, whatever it is. And then taking that information, and then that makes its way into your branding, onto your website, into your elevator pitch, that kind of thing. So how important is it, do you think, for people to maybe adhere to that type of mentality when it comes to using things that AI are generating? Or do you think it's fine for people to just take what it spits out and run with it?
I think it depends on the task. I think there's certain things I didn't want to let my business. So at the beginning, I think I ran with a lot of the first drafts. And so after a while, the consistency wasn't there. And so I had to learn to make it more consistent. And I think that's where the critiquing started to come into play. It's like, okay, I love the first draft, but maybe it's not what I wanted. So a lot of times I'd go and tell ChatGPT, hey, this is what I'm trying to get to. Critique this. And I would prompt it, critique this as a web designer, critique this as a business owner, critique this as a customer. I'd tell it which perspective I wanted to get, and it would go out there and try to give me that perspective. Sometimes I would have it go out and do research and then come back and critique it. So what it did was it built its knowledge base, or I would find an article that I curated, give it to it and say, here are some best practices for what I'm trying to do. Now read that, add that to your knowledge base. Now take those data points and read it here. So I would give it feedback on the perspective. And I want people to understand that AI should be leveraged as not your sole solution to anything, but what it does, it allows a single person like myself to leverage things and skills that I don't have, but be able to go in there with a mindset of saying, hey, the world's my oyster here, but I have to understand that I can't just dump everything in there, and I have to pick and choose what I want. And so that's where the curation comes in. So the human element needs to stay there. And I'll give you a real world example where it came in. And again, if you go listen to my podcast with Stephanie. It's great. I promise. If you want to start a business, that's a good story. I'll shameless plug myself there because it helps. But sure. One thing I told her was I wanted to soften my brand, because originally Claude was giving me this very modern, clean looking company. Logo was very squared. If you look at my Allen's Lightning logo, it's a square. Kind of looks like a Photoshop icon.
Right. Really. It looks like a Photoshop icon. Yeah.
Exactly. It does look like that. And so I didn't love it. All right. And then eventually, after talking to people in the business, hey, men struggle in cleaning businesses because it's a very female dominated business. And so I needed a way to add a feminine touch to it. And by no means am I the most macho individual. So I was like, you know what? I had an idea in my head about if I could redo the logo, because I had already ran with it. I was so deep into it and didn't stop to think about perception, right, at the end of the day. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, now that I have this new knowledge, how do I leverage that? And so a big thing was like, okay, I'm going to take something that's near and dear to me, and I want to embed it into this. And I will say, the yellow rose standard that we use in our cleaning business, if you follow me, we use like a yellow rose to symbolize and to kind of soften our logo. Right. It's part of our marketing. It's not our brand. It's just part of our company, and it's our standard in cleaning. And so that's a way to add a flower to our strong masculine brand. And I will say the way I curated that was I eventually showed it to the person that gave me the inspiration for the yellow rose, and willingly or unknowingly, the person gave me feedback. And so then once I got that feedback, the curation, the people aspect of things, I said, okay, that's not working. So I came back to Claude and said, hey, this isn't working. I need this based on the feedback. And I turn around. So there's always that human element, because
that's good.
How AI sees things is going to be a very technical perspective, but there's got to be some human emotional elements to things. And I think that you cannot allow AI to completely build a brand without adding that personalized human touch. And that's where the emotion comes in, because AI is just not going to generate that for you.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that's a really great way to explain that. It's like, not only were you are the person that's controlling what prompts you're giving AI. AI is giving responses, and then you're kind of ping-ponging that back and forth between the two AI models, and you have your input, but then now you've brought in somebody else, and you bring in the other people to then actually get true human eyes on it, to then give some feedback, and then you can just go from there. And I think that's super important. One of the things that happens in marketing a lot, and it happens with me too, is as a manufacturer, as a producer of a product, we in any industry, you have industry jargon. Okay. And oftentimes what happens is, because you're in the industry and you speak that jargon, it's like being in the military and you speak in acronyms. And then people are just like, what did you just say? What's a FOB, a forward operating base, an FOB, right? Like, yeah. I didn't know that. So there's a little bit of education that has to take place. And so the more you speak industry jargon, the more you lose the public. And so what happens is, when you start putting together branding, and maybe even with AI, it starts feeding you back some responses, and you might just be so stuck in this like language model, in this language box, where you're presenting a product or a service and nobody's searching for that product or service using the words that you're using, right? So it's really important that you do even more research and get feedback from people when you're using AI and this kind of stuff. So like even with Google, it's like Google was the entry point to AI, because you're just asking it questions and it's bringing you search results specifically for websites. But now AI is like taking all of that data and then coming up with a bit of a conclusion and an overall like general idea and bringing it to you. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of making sure that the data that's coming back to you has different eyes and ears on it. And then especially when it comes to building a business, you actually know what your customers are asking, and actually know what your customers are looking for. So I with Podcast Table Shop.
Okay.
So I build our website, and I have all these keywords and these terms, and I name all my pages and my URLs certain things because I want that to show up in search. And I remember bringing somebody into the shop one time, and they were doing a little bit of consulting for me. And so I was telling them about the business. I sat them down. I was like, okay, let's pull up Google. We're going to go incognito. And so if you were to search for one of our products, like you're just a guy who's thinking, okay, I'm going to buy a desk for a podcast studio. Like, what are you going to search in Google? And I remember them using some keyword that I had never thought of to talk about.
Do you remember?
Man, it was like, I don't know. It was like desk. I don't know. It was like studio something desk or whatever. And I was just like, I've never thought of that before, because I'm just thinking podcast table,
Right.
podcasting table for podcasting, table for podcast studio. But they were like something desk. And I was like, okay. So I typed that in and I'm like, oh shit, we don't rank. And I was about to be like, see, look, we're top of Google for keyword search. And they like searched something completely different. I was like, oh, so it just opened my eyes to a completely different world. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make in this long ass ramble, is that you've got to make sure that, again, there's that human element and you're talking to real people about real problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the primary thing, is like when you're offering a service, you're offering a product, you're essentially solving problems for people. So I want to get back to AI usage. So one of the things I was really impressed with was your website that you used to build, or that you used Claude to build. And not only is just a website, but you then went and created an app, I guess you would call it, like a web app that does all of your quoting for your cleaning services.
Yeah.
So I want to hear some real and raw, like, what were you at? What did you tell Claude when you first sat down, and did you just say, hey, I want to build a website, let's go? And then when you went to build this app, like, how did you prompt it to build an app? And then how did you get that actually functioning on a website? Because most people don't know how to do that. And it was mind-boggling to me that you were able to produce that and produce it well using Claude. And then once I knew that that was an option, I just went and told Claude myself, like, hey, build me an app, build me a website. And I learned that it was a lot easier than I realized. So I want to hear your approach to that, and maybe just simplify it so people can understand this is something that's actually attainable and doable with Claude, and it's maybe a lot easier than you think.
Sure. So the website. We'll start with the website.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
website
There's a
was
lot.
the website at first was like, hey, this is the brand, this is the company name, this is the this is the this. I need a website that's going to talk about this. So I gave it specifics, what the company was, where it was located, what I was trying to do, what my goals were. I will suggest stop typing to ChatGPT, stop typing to Claude. If you're going to work with either one of those, talk to it. Talk to it. Either let it transcribe what you're saying, because you can say a lot more than you'll type. You'll keep a shorter prompt. Like myself, I get bored typing my thoughts, so I talk them out loud, and you can feed good amount of data. So talk to your damn AI. And so what I ended up saying was, here's my goals, what I want it to be, what I want the company to look like, what I'm envisioning, and these are the colors I want, and give me that. And when it wasn't working, I went back and got into that and said, hey, build me a brand what do they call it? A brand color palette and strategy
Like a
for the.
branding guide?
Yes, there you go. That's the right word. Branding guide. So I said, build me a brand guide for the company. And then from now on, always use that branding guide for everything we do. So it went out there. It picked a few colors. I didn't love it. I changed it. It picked certain fonts. I changed it. I made it look the way I liked it. And then we ran with it. So then go back to the website and say, okay, take our brand guide and make sure that we follow that to the T. That was the types of words we use, the colors, the way things were listed, the way the logo was going to be, how our name was going to be positioned, where it would look, and what was our messaging, what was going to be the look and feel. Once I had that understand, then I just kept telling them to build the website. And then I turned around and said, hey, go look at this website and steal some of their ideas and implement that into this company. And so I was stealing this, I was stealing that, I was taking this. I go to a website and say, I love.
You were inspired by. You stopped stealing after you got caught with Candy and Mrs. Coley's class.
Yes, and if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and fucking listen to that and then come back to this one. Stop right here, give you a minute, go. All right, now you're back. Now you understand the joke. All right, here we go. So yes, I borrowed and inspired by many companies out there. And I want it to be, what do they say? Imitation's the highest form of flattery or something. No, the highest form. I don't know, whatever. You know the quote.
Yeah, it's about that.
I did take that. And again, back to the podcast. The reason I joined Stephanie's podcast was because a lot of my company was inspired by a lot of things she was doing. And I saw the process. She had already put the thought into it. I didn't rebuild a cleaning company from scratch and try to reinvent the wheel. I took people's best practices, information that was out there already, publicly available. If they didn't want me to know, they wouldn't put it out there. And so I took what I liked and made it me, and I put my spin on it. So that's kind of how the website came. And I will say the website was not something that I just put together once and then it just like magically came out and it looked exactly how I wanted and everything was great. That website took multiple versions, and as I started to see flaws in it and things that I wanted and how I wanted it to be, and I didn't love the look, and when I started messing with it on the mobile, did it look good on the mobile? Then I would send it to my mom and say, can you figure this out? And if my mom could figure it out, then I knew I was on the right page, because my mom's not the most technically savvy. And so I just went iterations. And even AI, even feeding it best UI practices and how to build the best website, it's still going to come out with things that just aren't going to work. And so it took some revision. But given that I'm not a web designer, I've never done it professionally, I barely even knew how to do HTML, but I was able to build that website. So I appreciate the compliment saying you liked my website. That was AI driven. But as long as you know what you want, you can get AI to build 95% of it on its own.
Right. Talk about I want to come back and ask some questions about the website, but go ahead and talk about the Quote app.
So the Quote app was pricing. It was a need because I was trying to price things and I was underbidding myself. I wasn't pricing things properly, and I knew that I needed to be consistent in how I price things, and I just wasn't able to do it. And so I started looking up ways to price. And it's just a lot of data. And so to me, it was like, okay, I can't remember all of this. I can't do this. So what I ended up doing, I said, all right, what I'm going to do, here's my demand. Went into Claude Design. At the time, Claude Design came out, and I was like, I'm going to use Claude Design. So I had it mock up a pricing quote guide. And same thing, tell it what you want, tell it what you need, feed it resources, give it what you're looking for, what it is you're trying to do, and let it start doing that. And it's just revision. It's just talking through it, calculation, how the calculation is going to be done, what the end goal was. And then I mock it up. And so my house was my test bed for data. So how long did it take my house to get clean? 2 cleaners, 1 cleaner. If we did a deep clean, if we did that. So I took real world data. Eventually I had more data once we started doing real houses. But I took my house and said, okay, my house was the base. I knew how many hours it took 1 cleaner to do it. Then I knew how many hours it took 2 cleaners to do it. And so what I ended up doing is I built this quote app by just going back and forth. Hey, do this, I need this, I need this. I need you to code it. It goes out and codes it for you and how you want it. And then I tell it, okay, I put in the square footage of my house, and I told it what I wanted based on that. And so I went back and forth with it, us real world consistent numbers that were going to provide me as close to what real world numbers are going to be. And so once I could put in my house and it matched up the time frame, I knew my production rate there. I knew how long it was going to take. And then I just told it, hey, we need to be consistent. And now here's the problem. There's variables to all things in life. Smaller houses, you have to have a set price, because just because it's small doesn't mean you charge $60. It may not even be worth going to a house for $60, even if it only takes you an hour. There has to be a minimum charge because you have overhead, you have insurance, you have the drive, you have gas, you have the hourly rate for the cleaner. So you can't charge the same. So small houses unfortunately have to pay a small premium, but bigger houses can't always carry that premium. So just because the house is big doesn't mean I charge you the same amount, because you know what, if you're going to be consistently cleaning, then, the next time we come clean, it's not going to take as long. And there's a lot of variables. And so I had to sit down and account for that. But as long as you can pull real world data and you can articulate, this is why I say talk to your AI. As long as you can articulate where the problems are, what your concerns are, it will work back and forth with you. So as long as you're willing to sit down, iterate, talk to it like a partner, talk to it like you're talking to a developer. No company out there goes out and hires one person to do it all. You have a guy or a gal who designs, comes up with the idea, then you have a coder, right? So just imagine AI is the skill labor. You are the guy or gal who needs to think through the process. And there's a lot of that is missing in AI. You can get ideas and suggestions from AI, but you need to articulate that properly and go back and forth. So as long as you can do that, don't be afraid to tell it what you want, and don't be afraid to let it revision. And I would even turn around and have it go through and do its own bug checking. So once we got to a certain point, I said, okay, hey, go throw 100 mock-ups and see if you're consistent. Go throw in variable square footage, variable cleaners, go throw in variable levels of dirtiness, and see if the numbers are consistent. Find flaws in your design, find security flaws. I posted the app originally online. Eventually it became a phone app. But I needed a password to make sure that the link wasn't public, but if someone got to it for whatever reason, they couldn't just go in there and fuck with my numbers and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things you need to go in there. You just have to, as long as you have the foundation and fundamentals to understand what it is you're trying to get to, as long as you can explain that properly, you can get AI to do a lot of this for you.
I think that's really what I was trying to get you to maybe talk to people about, because some people don't know. Number one, they don't know what's possible.
Sure.
Once they know what's possible, number two, they really don't know, or maybe don't know how to think through explaining all of that data and all of those variables to AI. One of the things that I've realized is, like, AI is capable of a lot of things. Things I'm not capable of myself, because I have to utilize it.
Yeah.
But sometimes AI is stupid.
Yes.
And so it'll spit something back. And I've realized, like, you have to teach AI. And where AI is a really great tool and can get a lot done in a little bit of amount of time, you do have to put the time and effort and energy into teaching it and prompting it properly to give you the results that you need it to give you.
Yeah.
I'm still in iterations. I mean, you talk about iterating, and that is, I think, the biggest takeaway for me in all of this is that you have to have iterations. You don't just run with the first thing. You get it, you look through it, and you just reteach AI. And I remember just having to tell Claude, like, hey, I'm going to show you how to do this. And then it says, okay, start showing me. And so I'll tell it one thing, and you just go step by step. Like, you can't, as much as it can do, as quickly as it can do it, you cannot get past that. You have to show it process, and you have to show it properly. And you have to be very clear about the things that you want it to do. I was really impressed when I saw your app, because it was just, the interface to me, it was just so logical. It was like step by step by step. It's like, okay, if you were to sit down, like, just as an individual, and like you're talking to somebody who's close to you, and they're just like, hey, listen, I want you to explain your quote process to me. Like, what does that look like? You're going to be like, man, how long do you have? Like, it's kind of boring. It's like, okay, just start from the top. All right, well, I'm probably going to ask you, where do you live? What's your address? Okay, how far is that from where our home base is or whatever? How many miles is that going to put on my cleaner's car? Okay, that geographical location. How big is your house? How many rooms do you have? It's like you have to ask all of that to get the output that you're looking for. And when I saw your app, it's like you had sliders and check boxes and toggle switches and all these data points. And you're like, click, type, slide, click, type, slide, slide, click, click, type, click, boom. And then you get a number. But you have all those data points. And I think it's just important for people to understand. Like when you're getting AI to build things, you have to feed it the data points. And the more data you can give it, the better. So this episode is not about me and how I use AI, but I want to make this point. I've gotten the most use out of AI when I realized that it works better with more data. And so I've taken as much data as I can find within my business purchasing, like all of my Amazon purchasing for the last 3 years, all of my online sales for the last 3 years, all of my information from like Uline and everything I've bought, all my materials from all the different stores I've shopped at, and I give it all to AI, and then it spits out all these different numbers and these percentages and these charts, and I'm like, dude, that's so amazing. Like I could sit there and do the data analysis and it would take me forever. Yeah. But the more data you can give it, the better results you're going to get.
Sure.
So my question now, just going back to the website, as simple as you can make it, give somebody just a real world takeaway right now on how you would have them approach building a website. Like what's their first prompt they're giving AI?
All right. Well, that one's a little tough. I mean, were we starting from scratch or someone who already has maybe
just scratch? Well, scratch, new business, scratch.
Okay. First, teach it about your business. So tell it, hey, this is my business, description of the business, the name of the business, what it does, what it's supposed to do, what are the goals. Give it that information. Tell it a little bit about the company and even details that aren't website necessarily related, how the company was formed, what it's trying to do, where you're trying to go with your company. Give it as much as you can. It won't hurt to give it more data than not enough data. Then turn around and tell it, what it is you want it to look like. If you can build a brand guide beforehand, best bet if you're going to start from scratch, just tell it what colors you want, what kind of fonts you're looking for. Give it as much as you can, or let it go out there and say, hey, give me what you think is the best approach, and this is the type of look I want to give. Make sure you just give it enough details to give you something to start. Your first draft don't worry, the first draft is always going to be rough, but get started. So just give it enough details and then let it run. Once it builds the first page, it's going to be HTML, it's going to be a front page. Look at it, analyze it, give it your initial feedback, and then just keep doing that over and over until you get what you're looking for. I would also turn around and kind of iterate what you were saying as far as saying, hey, let's take what we already got and here's some more data, here's some more pieces, here's what I want, this is my goals. Point it in the direction of what you're inspired by, what inspired you, and then let it continue. As long as you can go back and forth with the conversation, treat it as a thought partner. So put your thoughts out there. It's your thought partner. It's going to help you declutter your mind. It helps me all the time. Declutter your mind, bring those thoughts out, brainstorm, data dump into it. Talk to it like it's your best friend who doesn't give a fuck about what you have to say, and you're giving it everything. And so just tell it everything. The more you give it, like you said, the better you'll get.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. I think that a lot of people don't know that right there. Like, oh, I can just tell it a whole bunch of stuff. And that's one of the things that I've learned is like, yeah, you've got to teach it. Just teach it. Tell it about who you are. Tell it about your life. Like if you're open to this, like obviously, sure. I think most people who are listening to this are going to be open to this kind of thing and using AI in that type of way. But I remember speaking to AI for the first time, like Kim, my wife, was telling me, she goes, oh, I talked to it while I'm on my way to work and when I'm coming home from work. I'm like, you just talk to AI in your car? She's like, yeah, I'm just telling all about my business and telling about what I'm thinking about, some of the problems I'm trying to solve, some of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of brilliant because then it gets to know you. Yeah. And that's if you want it to know you, right? So it was a little weird for me the first time, but you hit the button and it's like, hey, how can I help you today? And I'm just like, well, I want to tell you about my world and my life. It's like, okay, that sounds great. I'd love to hear about that. Right. So you give it all that data dump. One thing I
Yeah.
want to add to what you said is sometimes I will say, is there anything else that you need to know about me or my business or my goal in order for you to give me a really great response or a really great solution to my problem? And then it'll prompt me to respond to it some more. And then I just maybe do that a couple times to make sure it has all of the information that it needs to give me the solution to my problem. So I think there's definitely more to be talking about with AI. I really like this vein of conversation with business and technology and AI. And, you know, that really to me feels more like I just get excited about that. There's more to us than just our business and our finances and our successes and failures. But I really love this conversation. So I'm pretty sure we'll get back to some more of this business talk in some of our future episodes. Any final words for people listening? What do you want them to
Sure.
take away?
Well, number one, let me say I'm glad I'm not the only one talking to AI. I will put that out there. I go on walks, and sometimes the mind is running and no one to listen. So it's become my new favorite thing. But so I'm glad I'm not the only one. Appreciate that. I don't feel like such a weirdo no more. And but no,
You're still
you
a
know,
weirdo, but
but I
I'm
don't
glad
feel
you
like it.
don't. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But as far as AI in business, people who benefit the most from AI are going to be small companies, small businesses who don't have the capital and the revenue to actually pay to have a web developer, to have a marketing person, to have social media content creator. And I'm not saying AI is going to replace those types of work right away. You can get it to do fairly well, but it's better to have an AI marketing person, an AI developer, an AI website designer, an AI financial planner or guide or business strategist or even just business partner to talk to kind of brainstorm through ideas than to have no one to sit there and dwell on it. If you guys take a go look up Instagram, Alan's Landing Cleaning. If you look that up, you can see a lot of the things I've played with AI. It's kind of my testing ground for making marketing and how do I make campaigns. And there's so many things. I just mess around with it. It's not the serious side of the business, but I want you guys to kind of see some of the potential and possibilities that you can do. Go online and look up what people are doing. Nowadays, it's so good that sometimes I don't know if it's AI generated or someone actually created it. And that is the scary piece. So you can do anything. The world's your oyster. Look up details, go on YouTube, find some guides. Don't be afraid. There are multiple levels on how to use AI. Don't use it like Google. Put some data into it, give it examples. Once you can tell it what you're looking for and back it up with real fundamentals and real good information, the better it's going to process for you. So go out there and try it. You can do video, you can do text, you can do content creation, you can brainstorm. Don't miss out the opportunity to gain a wealth of knowledge because you're afraid to just touch it for whatever reason. You won't break it.
You won't break it. I have seen some videos where people are trying to break AI and they're like, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to count to 1,000,000. And it's like, oh, ha, ha, ha. I don't really need to do that, do I? Surely you're joking. And they're just like, no, I really want you to count to 1,000,000. Oh, that wouldn't be a good use of time. And they're just like really trying to get it to just spin its
Sure.
wheels and
Sure.
drink all the clean water in the world. So
Yeah. But last thing, if you have a business, invest the $100 for the pro plan. Use it, sit down, play with it, tinker it. The limits are good. The new
yeah,
Fable 5 model's out. It's beyond the scope of what I could push it to. Don't be afraid. Ask, if you have a problem, ask it for a solution and run with it.
sure. Yeah. Awesome. So where can people find you or us online just in case they have any more questions about AI?
Sure. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Jose Razo on LinkedIn. Search my name. I'm sure you'll find me. And then if not, you can look up my business, allanslandingcleaning.com. You can find my contact information there if you want to email me on there. Just reference this. We have our website as well, honestplaybook.com, but we don't have a lot of personal contact information on there. So that's probably not the best place. Instagram, Alan's Landing Cleaning. Hit us up on Instagram for the at Honest Playbook, and reach out. We'll take questions, answer anything. I mean, I don't mind helping some individuals. If you want us to jump on a quick 10-15 minute call, ask your questions about AI, I would love to support some of the new entrepreneurs out there.
I love it. Awesome. All right, man. Well, appreciate your time and appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience on this episode of The Honest Playbook. Catch us next time.